Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on the location, everybody who is joining in for this particular session of the Data Bash conference. I welcome you all to a session on hands-on with Power BI visual calculation, a new DAX world to explore. As you might be aware that Microsoft Power BI offers you different kind of calculation that include calculated columns, measures. In February 2024, Microsoft came up with a new set of calculation that is known as visual calculation. These calculations are a little different from what you were previously doing in terms of measures and calculated column. So today we are going to have a look at these visual calculations and see how can we utilize those. So my name is Amit Chandak and I'm a data platform MVP. I'm a Power BI community super user, a YouTuber having channel with the same name. I also provide some courses from my website biworld.in. Most of them are free. And I am a chief analytics officer at Canerica working on data analytics project, especially along with Power BI and Microsoft Fabric. So let's quickly understand what is visual calculation, and then what we are going to do is we are going to understand these definitions in first few minutes. Post that I am going to take you through the file where I'm going to do these with some of these visual calculations, and in case you want that file, I have already given the link that will be given to you, so you can also download that file from where to start. At the end, I will also give you the link of the file which actually contains the complete visual calculation. A visual calculation is DAX calculation defined to execute directly on the visual. So this is different from your measures or calculated column one, which is calculated at the start of the loading, one which is calculated at runtime. Visual calculations are done at visual level, so they are very specific to visual. So beyond that visual, they don't have a scope. So you will not be aware of a visual calculation outside the visual. So visual calculation makes it easier to create calculation that are previously hard to create, leading to simpler DAX, easier maintenance and better performance. Now, because the calculation will only happen at the visual level and it will happen on the data which is already available in the visual, it would be easier, it would be simpler, and it would be providing you better performance. The reason for better performance is that I have data, final data on which I am doing these calculations. I don't have to do these calculations on the complete data or the source data which I have. Now, how visual calculations are different from other DAX calculations. So first of all, visual calculations are not stored in the model. Instead, they are stored at visual level. So they are only very specific to visual. So that's a difference. The visual calculations can only refer to what's on the visual. So let's say if you have, let's say, few measures or calculated column on the visual, your visual calculation can only use that. It cannot go beyond that. So neither the column boundary nor the row data boundary. So let's say when you use previous function, previous month, sometime what happens if the month is also not available, still we are able to get the previous month, because we are creating a measure and measure can go beyond the boundary of what visual is available. But that's not going to happen in visual calculation. Visual calculation cannot find a previous month outside what is visible in your visual calculation. So both in terms of data as well as the columns, it cannot go beyond what is available already in your visual. Anything in the model must be added to the visual before the visual calculation can refer to it. Means if you want to use a measure or a calculation or a column, it need to be available in the visual. Then the next one is visual calculation combines simplicity of the context from calculated columns and on-demand calculation flexibility from the measure. So they are as simple as calculating a column, but they provide you flexibility of runtime because these calculations are done runtime. On-demand calculations, they are just like your measures. Compared to measure, visual calculation operates on aggregated data instead of detail level. So as I explained previously, this is going to happen on the data which is already given to your visual, and it is not going to work on the detail level data. So definitely it's going to provide you better calculation, better performance. Since visual calculations are part of the visual, they can refer to the visual structure, which is lead to more flexibility. So we have this challenge of having a concept of row, previous row, next row, etc. Now this can only happen in a visual. When in a visual we can call, okay, this is a previous row, this is the next row. So these kind of stuff can only happen at the visual level, and that flexibility is not available in calculated column or measure. In terms of visual rows only we are talking. So when the visual calculations were released, there were certain templates which has been released. Some of these visual templates for running sum, like I want to do a running sum. Moving average means average of from, let's say, row 1 plus row 2 plus row 3, and we can have a window of moving average, like I want moving average of 2 or 3. Percentage of parent means if I have a hierarchy, then I can have percentage of parent. Then percentage of grand total, very common. You want a percentage of grand total. Now, why to create a measure for that? You can have it using the percentage of grand total. Averages of children. So I have, let's say, brand level and category level data, and I want brand level data to be sum of category level, so that, or brand level data to be average of category level, that I can do, versus previous row, versus next row, versus first in the data, versus last. These are some of the templates which are available. Now templates can use more than one function. There are functions which are available. They specifically has been given for visual calculation, but there are already existing functions which can also be used, and we are going to have a look at some of those. Now there is a concept of partition by and order by, which you might have seen in the functions which has been given to us some time back. Some of these functions are windows function, in offset function, index function, row number function, and rank, not rank x, rank function. So there you have seen that concept. Now there, if you might have seen, there was an additional parameter at few places which is talking about axis and reset. So axis is one of the parameter which is very common in the visual functions or visual level calculation function. Now this axis is basically your row or column, depending on how you want it to use. So many functions have optional parameter which can be only be used in visual calculation. Axis influence how your calculation traverse in the visual matrix. So basically, you, instead of saying I want previous of brand, I can simply say I want previous of a row or a previous of a column. Now depending on whether you are using row or matrix, or uh, row or matrix column. For a very simple example, matrix row or matrix column, then we can travel across row and columns. In any visual we have axis, like you have x-axis. So in x-axis I want to, based on the x-axis value, I want to go for the previous one. Now other than that, there would be reset. Why reset would be needed? Let's say I have a hierarchy. In the hierarchy, what would happen? Let's say I want to do sum of childs or average of childs, or I need those kind of calculation, then I need a reset. Now you sum up and then the reset start, and then you again get the next level. So reset should happen at the lowest parent or highest parent or none, or you can even use a number. So based on that, we can have the reset parameter. This is just very similar to partition by, where you want to partition. So specifically when you want to create MTD, let's say running some in MTD you want to create, you may want to reset, once the month is over. Now these are some of the functions. Some of these you might have seen in the templates, but these are some functions which has been released at the time when the visual calculation has been released. Few has been added little later. These functions are designed to make sure you are able to do easy visual calculations. So collapse all, expand all, first, is at the level, last, moving average, previous, range, and running sum. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through some of these functions, and we are going to have a look at the file. In between, if there are certain questions, I would be happy to answer that. So let me share a file on my screen. I'm going to use this file today. This file is basically already containing a sales data model. So let me showcase you my data model before I start, and then I can showcase you the visual calculations. I need to do a little bit arrangement so that the model comes. Okay. So in the center of this model, there is a sales fact table, and it is connected with date, item, geography, and customer dimension. They are master table or the dimension table, and all the joins are one to many single directional join. The perfect star schema you could have imagined. Now, sales is typically the retail sales data, and the items are sold in different geographies to different customers on different dates, and their different item brand. This is all cooked up data, but do have a good story. Again, this is available at my GitHub account, and I have already given the link of the PBIX where it is already been loaded. The same PBIX we are starting with. Now, let's start with a calculation. Let's say today, if I want to create a visual brand wise net sales. So I have a major net for which I created this visual brand wise net sales, and let me convert it to a table visual. It is not necessary to do that, but just for understanding, let's try to do it. Now let's sort it on brand also. Now if I ask you, how are you going to get me the previous row brand? Now, if you are aware of index function or offset function or window function which came very new, you may say, okay, maybe we can use offset -1. That could give us, okay. So let's try out, can we do, how easily we can do a measure to get the last row. So let's try first of all offset. We will do a little modification. Delta is going to be -1. I want previous one. Then relation is basically your table or your set of columns, and here in my case it could be all selected item brand, because brand is the only thing I have in the context. Then I need order by. Now if you don't give order by default is going to take what is there available in your all selected. I have one, so I can leave it basically, but just for our understanding, let's also give order by, which is item brand. Now let's first get what does offset give it to us, okay, and then we will try to complete this calculation. Let me rename it also as offset, or let me call it previous one. Let me drag it. Now it is not working because I just went to the offset, so I need to complete the calculation. So let's try out calculate net and then offset by -1. Let's try out this. So now you can see that my visual calculations are trailed by 1 row. So this is the value coming here. This is the value coming here. This is the value coming. I'm very happy with it. Now you went ahead and said, okay, no worries. I need this calculation on category also. What should I do now? I duplicate this. Okay, I have the calculation. Why don't I change this column with the category? Now this calculation is not matching with what I have in the previous, because my offset function was talking about what? It was talking about all selected item brand. Now to move from brand to category, I need another function which is going to be all selected category. So I cannot go and change it to category now. I need to write down another calculation. It means every time such thing happens, I need to go ahead and change it out. So this creates a lot of overhead. Now, is visual calculation can help us here. So now why don't we go ahead and, now we know that this calculation is not correct here in the second visual, but in the first visual it is correct. Now what I would like to do here is basically I would like if I can do the same job using visual calculation. So let me go ahead and add a visual calculation. First time I'm going to show it to you. So where is that option to add a visual calculation? So your visual should be selected. The visual should be selected. After that, go to the home tab. Under that, new visual calculation. So you will see this visual calculation here. And once you click on the visual calculation, you have these some templates which you can use, or you can simply click on the icon. It will take you to focus mode kind of a screen where you can write down your visual calculation. So I would like to write down a new calculation which is previous to. And how would I like to do this calculation? We have seen few functions. So we have seen function like previous or last. These kind of function we have seen. So let's see the function what we want to use. So we want to use the function previous. Now in the previous function, it is asking for a expression step axis. What is my expression? Expression is net. Step is 1, and now it is previous. So step 1 means should be going into the negative direction. Let's try out this very simple calculation as of now. And as you can see, this previous 2 is matching with my previous. It means I am a row behind. I am happy with the calculation, but what's the benefit? This previous one was also doing the same job. Why do we have another function to do the similar job? I was happy doing with the offset. Now let's try to change this first visual. So what I'm going to do here is in this first visual, now I'm going to go ahead and remember this is visual level calculation. I can't bring it into the second visual. So I go ahead and change this particular visual on category. What's the difference you observe? The difference which you observe here, now look at the calculation. This previous one is not working. It's not the previous row, but look at this one, previous 2. This is basically the previous row. So we have changed the row, but still we are able to do the visual calculations, or same visual calculations still applies. It means I don't have to do this entire rework of creating so many measures, handling so many conditions, is in scope, is filtered, has one value. Nothing is required. I just simply changed it and it worked. Okay. Now you created a visual calculation, and let's say you want to edit it. Then how are you going to edit it? So go ahead, we will go ahead and click on this icon, edit icon. So this edit icon is there. I'll go back here. Now I can go and check out, let's say, other parameters. So it is talking about axis. What is the axis? Let's try axis with axis only. Axis with row. So what is our axis? Row. Not row function, only row. Let's try out row. It's not working. Rows. So rows is very similar. Basically, whatever is in the row category or brand, it is going to work on that. Now we can also use parameters like 1. Let's try that out. Okay, the same functionality is there. Now let me change it to rows and come out and do one more stuff. What happens if I add category as well as brand? Does this calculation still holds true? I add category as well as brand. Now let me move previous to little ahead. Or let me do one thing. Let me go to the calculation. There is a feature here. Now I don't want this calculation previous, which is not working. So what I would like to hide this. So let me hide this calculation. Now this is the only feature available only at the visual calculation level. So we can hide the calculation and we can go back. Now previous is there in the visual, but it is not visible. Okay. Now again you see these values are still working on multiple rows because we said, okay, do it based on the row. So the calculations are still holding true. Very happy with this calculation. Now let's look at some of the common calculations which I did. So how do I create some new calculation? So one of the ways, once I'm on the here on the calculation, if I'm not editing, I can click on new visual calculation, custom, and it gives me here new calculation. Now I'll click on this FX, and one of the very common thing we do is running sum, isn't it? We want to do the running sum. That's very common. Let me do one thing. Let me remove everything and try out what does it do running sum. Running sum equal to field. What is the field for which I want running sum? I definitely want it for a major. Net. Are there other parameters? Yes. Axis, blanks, reset means let's say now I'm using brand and category, and if I'm using it on the matrix visual, I will have a parent child and I would be able to reset. Okay, so it will become, instead of running sum, it will become the running sum within, let's say, brand or within category. So let's do it row wise, optional parameter, but let's try it out. Okay, now let's look at the calculation. It's matching with the grand total, so we understand. Okay, this is actually an increasing calculation from bottom. So every row you can see the next value is getting added up. This value is getting added up. So we are getting a running sum here. Now let's go back. We have a running sum here. Now let's duplicate this page. One second. Seems like duplicate. Now let's say if I can use a matrix visual instead of table visual. So I'll go here and I'll convert this into matrix visual. And let's move category back to the rows, expand it, and so we have now let's look at the calculation, how it is happening right now. So brand 1 is the sum of these two, then brand sum so what's happening here is, let's look at the last one. So last one is still the category 5 is still the sum of everything. It means what is happening is, let's go one level up and let's understand this calculation. So if you see now here, this is still a running sum brand wise. Now let's go to the next level of hierarchy, and it is still a brand level sum. Even if we expand, now grand total will be a little difficult to understand, but this is a sum of these two, and here this is increasing, this is increasing, this is increasing, sum of these three. So it means our running sum is still working. Now let's try to edit this and add one more calculation, custom calculation. Same running sum we wanted to do now. So let me do the running sum. Again, I would like to do it for net. And rows, comma blank. Now let's go back. We can understand it here, but let's go back and try to understand this. Now what you see here is, this is the sum of these two at the lowest parent. There are only two, the values. So brand is the first parent here, or the lowest parent or the highest parent, both it is, and then start increasing. But in spite of that fact, look at the thing, it has taken care that the brand level, the sum is still working out. So this turns out to be a really good option if I wanted to do, let's say, running sum. Now what I will do with running sum, I can have percentage of grand total. That's very simple thing which you wanted to do. So how do I do all these things on measures, percentage of grand total or something? How can we do individual calculation? I have only one function running sum. How do I do that? So let's add one more visual calculation. And we want percentage of grand total. Let's see, do we have a template here? We do have percentage of grand total. So why don't we use it? Okay. So field, simple. Now I can use divide function here, isn't it? Net collapse all. Collapse all function is going to give me grand total. Okay. Net rows. Let's try this out. So I am getting percentage of grand total. Now let's go back. So now I'm getting percentage of grand total, and very recently, if I remember correctly, on the formatting pane, we have been given option in the properties to data format these things, and instead of decimal number, we can use it as percentage. Let's see, do we have an option for percentage? Let's write down a custom format. Percentage. So now I am able to see percentage. Now this feature has been very recently enabled for visual calculations, because what happens when we do percentage of GT, how do I do visual calculation? It is not available at the model level, and there is no calculation available at the format level because that was not known. So now we have the calculation also, formatting also happening at the 3 levels, and so visual level it is happening, at the model level it is happening, and then we have the individual formatting of the let's say labels or all the items which are there, like, so we can do the formatting for all those. So there are 3 levels of formatting which is available, and this is one of the formatting which we were needing for the visual level calculation, so it is available here. So I am able to format it also at the visual level. So we are able to use these visual calculations, but what I am doing here is I am showcasing you all the functions which are came very recently. Second is, we have one question that, okay, you are changing brand to category, but you are a developer, you are changing it. Can it work on field parameters? Because that's how we change the access. End user is not going to change. Now, till last month, this feature was not supported. And very recently, there is an announcement that field parameter has been supported on visual calculations. I've also not experimented, so I'm going to experiment with you together that the visual calculations, which has been there for like half a year now, can they work with visual calculation? Can they work with field parameters? So let's go back to our page 1. And here, let's make this visual a little simpler. And in this one, we have 2 visual calculations, previous and running sum. Now, let's try to create a field parameter. How do we create a field parameter? So, in between, if there are certain questions, let me check out. So first of all, I'll give the starting file, and let's see in case it is reaching to some of you on the who's watching on the YouTube. Let's see. Okay, Meanwhile, I'll continue. I don't see any comments or chat right now visible to me on the StreamYard. So let's try to create a field parameter. So I'll go to the modeling tab, and in the modeling tab, I have this option new parameter. Let me click on the new parameter, and I'll click on fields. Now fields is something which we also call field parameters or field parameters. Once it is there, I can either opt for axis field parameters or a major field parameter. Don't try to combine those. So I would try to create a field parameter for my axis, and for that, from the item table, I would like to bring brand, category, subcategory, and from the geography table, I would like to bring state and city. And then I would like to click on create to create this field parameter. I can also rename this parameter as axis or maybe axis1. There is an option to add slicer on a page. It will automatically add a slicer on a page. I don't have to even do that. So let me create this. Okay, so we got a slicer here. Let's make it a little smaller. And we don't need the first visual, so we'll delete it. Now I got my axis. I have this visual which is right now running on brand, and I would like to now run it on axis. So I'll go to the axis on the right hand side, and from there I'll drag the axis here, and I'll remove the brand. Okay, let's see what happens. It's doing some job, but in between what I can do is I can click on the brand. So it is brand wise. Now I'm clicking on category. Now look at the calculations, the previous calculation and this one. Okay. And this is the running sum. As you can see, this is increasing. And as you can see, this sum is increasing and it is matching with the grand total. It means the running sum is also working. So it is working category wise. Let's look at the subcategory wise. Again, the previous row, the matching with the previous row, 200K for the subcategory 11, 200K for subcategory 12. So previous row, it's matching with that. State wise, let's check it out. It's working there. So what's happened? The new feature released a week back. We have this very good feature. Now it is working with the field parameters. So now we are doing one calculation. Let's say we are doing previous, compare with previous month or previous year, and then I don't have to do, okay, if when the month is in scope, then do MOM. Then if the quarter is in scope, do QOQ. When day is in scope, do DOD, date on date, and I create so many complex formula. Whatever is by context of the axis or whatever by axis is there, based on that, my visual calculation will automatically adjust. So I will, when it is year, I'll get YOY. When it is month, I will get MOM. When it is quarter, I will get QOQ. Such a easy calculation. So that's bring lot of flexibility in our hand. But a question will come to your mind: are we limited by the functions which has been provided newly, or can we use some of the existing functions? And especially the very powerful Windows function, the set of 5 functions: offset, window, index, row number, rank. And let me add rank X to it because I've already tested out these functions. Window function do have a little bit of challenge. When I tested last time, it may or may not work on the visual calculations. It will get supported, but yes, it has all the ingredient. You can make it support. We have a range function here, very similar. Means you can do the sum of a range or a window. You can do that. So now what I would like to do here is, let's duplicate this page. Now we got a lot of flexibility here. So why don't we duplicate this page? And now let me remove some of these visual calculations. I'm done with that only. Now I would like to add one more calculation here. And now I would like to use offset function. So let's go to a custom calculation and see can offset help us. Offset minus 1. So calculate, same calculation we'll try out here. Calculate net offset. So it's asking for delta, let's give minus 1. It's asking for relation, so I don't want to give any relationship. I'll say take it from those. And what is my order by? Let me try if I can take net in the order by. I'm not giving axis or row. I'm not giving my row. I say why don't you take a measure net here? Okay. And if you know the recent feature of offset function, they have been changed a little bit after they have been released. That previously everything need to be part of the relation. It need to be part of order by or partition by. But now majors have been excluded from that limitation. So major can be part of order by, or even if they are not there. So it's talking about relationship, partition by, match by, order by, some of missing. So let's try order by here and let's see, does it work? It's not working, something wrong with this calculation. Let's try out. So offset minus 1 rows net. Let's try out only offset first of all. Okay, give me a second, just checking it out. Let's restrict it using rows as of now, and let's see what happens. Let's also put a calculate now. Calculate net offset. Okay, so started working. Now we have to understand these calculations. First, let's go back and sort it on state. Now you can see the offset is started working here. And it is one row behind. So we are able to use the offset function also. Now let's try to edit it. Now let's try to give order by again. Now let's try to see what mistake we were doing. So for order by, we have to use order by function. We can't simply give an order by. So order by net, and how do I want it? How was my order by? Actually, my order by was descending. So I want to give descending here. So now we give an order by function, and let's go back. Let's sort it on net. Now you can see that the offset function is actually giving me a -1 row based on sorting of my major. It is not sorting of my axis. So it is making my visual calculation even more powerful, that now I have choice of my major in the offset function, and this offset function doesn't need a relationship which is fixed. Is it true? Does it need, have we used state? No. So can we use subcategory? And is it still going to work? Look at this. This is still working. It is working with subcategory. Can it work with brand? Yes, it is. So one calculation which has been done, and with the field parameter, with the index function, the sorting is now working. But can this sorting also be dynamic? And this is, as I said, I have not even experimented with visual calculation. So I would like to see, and this is going to be really interesting. Can I use the major field parameter inside this? So let's try that out. So we go to the modeling, and this is something we are trying together. New field parameters, fields, and let's call it major one. So we check out, is it going to support majors also? So net, gross, COGS, margin percentage, discount percentage. And let's add this to the pane. So we have all the majors what we have. Click on create. Yeah, I have another slicer here now. Now how to use this visual calculation into my visual? So I can bring in this major here in my visual. And let me check only one. Let me check gross. So I have gross, I have net. And let's not talk about the formatting. We can work on that little later. Now my question is, can this offset function somehow take this major? So I change it. I don't even have to bother about let axis change, let major change, and the calculation continue to work. But now the moment I use that, let me now try out new visual calculation. And again, let's try to do the same. We'll not call it offset 2. Calculate. Now, first of all, what to calculate? Major one. Can we use major one here? Okay. So major one is right now gross. Actually, are we able to use gross? So we are not seeing that. We are not seeing the major calculation. Okay. And then when I try to use offset, I'll use -1 rows, and then order by. If I go to the order by, again, can I use measure one? No. Let's write down forcefully. Measure 1 measure. Now it is not available in the visual, but forcefully we are writing down. They are writing down both of them forcefully. Let's try that out. So this is something which is right now not working. So we'll move ahead without having this. So let's remove this from the visual. So now we have learned how we can use the axis in the field parameters to make it dynamic, and we have already done some calculation using existing functions as well as some of the new functions which has been provided to us. Now there is a very common stuff which has been you've been asked, which is either rank or a row number, and the functions which are there with us, the rank function, the row number functions, they work with it. So why don't we go ahead and try that out? So let's try out the rank function first of all, the rank x function. And the reason for it, because rank x is a little different from your row number and rank function, because they are very similar to index offset. So we know, okay, this is working, maybe this also works. So rank x, table, rows, expression, net, values we leave it, order by descending, ties, dense. Let's try all this. And as you can see, we are getting a rank. And let's go back and understand this. This is the correct rank, isn't it? For brand wise, this is the top brand by net. So let's try that out. Let's try to change it to subcategory, category, brand, state, and city. So we are able to use this now. Now what we are going to do is we are going to use the row number function. And this is also acting as your row. So basically, if I have a visual and I need the row numbering, I can get it using this one. So let's go to the home, click on the visual, new visual calculation, and inside this new visual calculation, let's use row num. Function is row number, relationship is rows, order by is net, comma DESC. Blanks partition by everything I would like to leave as of now. Let's go back to the report. Now, as you understand, the difference between the row number and the rank would be the rank based on the ties. It will, so if there are two number having the same value, the rank would be same, but row number would not be. You can break the ties easily now. It will automatically break if you don't give. Otherwise, you can also specify additional order bys to break those ties. But row number would always be unique, continuous number. So you got a row number, and now if it is a table visual, let's say, so then you can actually move this column as the first one, and it's very easy for you to showcase it like a row. And definitely we have the properties data format, so we can call row number as a whole number. So we can give this. So now in matrix visual we don't have a functionality where we can move this measure or the visual calculation as the first column. So we'll not be able to do that, but at least here we have the flexibility that we can on the table visual we can showcase it as a row number. I understand still it is a calculation, it's not a group by, so it's not something which is grouping your data, it is just one thing which is displaying your data. Okay, so it is little different. Same way we can format the rank at the visual level. So now these are the various functions we have explored, and let me see if there are any questions here. And let me check with Charlie. Are we having any questions which has been asked on YouTube or somewhere where we wanted to answer some of those?
No questions yet at the moment there, Amit. Feel free to continue.
Okay. So what we are going to do is for next 10 minutes or so, we'll do a few more calculations. So let's go ahead, the new visual calculation. And let's look at the versus first. Versus first means I want to compare with the first value. So what is the field? My net field. So I clicked on versus next. Let me change that. FX versus first. So the field is net. Let's look at the argument of the first function. Net, comma, axis, which is rows, blanks and reset, we don't need it as of now. Now to understand this, let's go back. Let's change the sorting to the state. Now let's move little near to the axis. So definitely there is nothing before Alaska, so it is the difference is 0. Okay, then net is, hold on, we're doing versus first value. What is the first value? 90,000. So first value is 90,000. The second value is 470k. So subtract that 90. So we'll get 381. Now the third value is 1.3 million. Subtract 90 from there, we got 1.2 million. Third value is 270k. Subtract 90 from there, we get 181. So this is versus previous. The first value I'm comparing with the very first value. So sometimes you come across a situation that I want to compare it with one particular value and I want to get the difference from there. So versus first versus last. This is something again which you can do easily. And now look at the calculation, how easy it is. Now think about that you have to do the same calculation in a DAX major. Not only this, when you change it, it should work. So now when I change it, it is working for category for me. So how much effort you have to do to make this calculation work as a DAX measure? You need to write down a real complex measure in such scenarios to make sure that these things work. But with visual calculation, it is just like, very small calculation. This current calculation minus first, that's all. And you're done. The axis is changing, the calculation is changing, adjusting to itself. And we don't have to bother about, okay, what is in the scope right now. Let's again click on the visual and new visual calculation. And now let's try the index function, which is also can do very similar job, isn't it? So right now I am comparing with the first. Can I compare with second or third? Isn't it? But previous function doesn't allow me. First function was not asking me a parameter first, second, third, fourth. So can't I use the index function for that? So let's try index function. Index 2. Calculate net index position, second position. I want the second topper. Relationship is rows. Order by, do I want to order by the axis or do I want to order by the major? Let's start by major. Order by net comma DESC. Second topper I want, and then I can subtract it from net. So I want to know the difference from the second topper. How I'm standing against my second topper. So some calculations are coming. Let's go back and understand. So we go back. We now sort it on the net. Now what is my second topper? This is my second topper. This is my value for the second topper. Now, as you can see, the second topper, the index 2 would be 0, 183, 256, 2,567 minus 183. This is the difference from the second topper. This is 1.7, this is 1.8, so little negative. This is 1.1, this is 1.8, so little more negative. This is only 615, so this is little more negative. So we are now able to have our visual calculations based on a function which is previously given to us of index, and now we are not only comparing it with the first topper or first value, we are also comparing with second value, third value, same way. Offset can work both the direction. ascending, descending, +1, -1. So we can have that. So in this manner, what is happening here is basically we are able to use some of the existing functions which has been provided to us, and we are also able to use the new function which has been provided to us to do all these visual calculations, which is helping us to do all these things really quickly, and we don't have to change our calculation if our axes are changing. So it's so powerful that your axis can change and still you don't have to change your visual calculation. As we are nearing the session end time, just last one calculation, custom, and we will use this calculation range. Don't have here, let's use the range function. Steps, 2 steps, include current, axis is rows, let's try calculate net
Couple of minutes left there, Amit.
Okay, fine. Let's wrap it up. I think there's some problem with the syntax. So any questions which we have, we can take those up. I'm just crossing this out.
Yep, looking at the comment section, there aren't any questions at the moment.
Okay. Fine. I think so. Thanks everyone who has joined this one. I hope you now understand the power of visual calculations, which you can use and do real dynamic calculation at the visual level. So go ahead and try that out, and you can comment on the video, and I can check out a little later that in case you need some more information.